Hi, I'm Flip Pedot. Welcome to Old Bull TV, and welcome to this very special necropsy of the Joe Biden presidential campaign. We first pronounced Biden's campaign deceased immediately following its lifeless performance in the Iowa caucuses. Then New Hampshire poked it with a sharp stick and it didn't budge, suggesting it was fixing to stay dead. Until a few days ago, that is, when as quickly as it had died, it had risen. Sleepy Joe was suddenly wide awake. "I'll be damned if we're going to lose this nomination," he told supporters in a phone call. He even went so far as to predict that he'll walk out of Nevada with either a first or second place trophy, easily his best performance in any primary or caucus, not just of this cycle, but of his life. Indeed, a new poll from the Las Vegas Review-Journal shows Biden in second place. So, is Uncle Joe's campaign really still alive, or merely undead? Now, before we get to Biden, it's worth noting that the bureaucratic basket case that is the Iowa Democratic Party continues to make money for traders who manage to play the swings in the caucus winner market. This one is flipped again as the results of the recanvass showed Buttigieg and Sanders within 8/100ths of a delegate of one another. Sanders has since requested a recount in certain precincts, so this coin flip pricing does seem about right. Maybe give a small edge to Sanders, but remember that a tie in the number of delegates apportioned goes to Buttigieg for alphabetical reasons. Sanders not winning the delegate race in Iowa was the one pick we've made thus far that hadn't panned out, so we're certainly pulling for him, if only to restore our perfect track record. But back to the matter at hand, while we still don't know who won Iowa, we do know who came in fourth, and it's our man of the hour himself. So let's do a quick check of the Biden campaign's vitals. He's locked in a virtual tie with Mayor Pete for third to win the nomination, according to Predict It traders, who give him a respectable 40% chance of heading into Super Tuesday with at least a win in South Carolina, slightly off his lows from last week. 538 for its part forecasts Biden to win the second most delegates overall, with a 1 in 3 chance of a contested convention, suggesting he may still have a path. And he's had no trouble getting journalists to write pieces about his ostensible comeback. The Biden apologists are comparing his losing streak to Bill Clinton's slow start in 1992, when he failed to win any of the early states and didn't really start racking up delegates until mid-March. But this comparison is inapt. For starters, Clinton was a relative unknown going into the primaries, so his early stumbles weren't the rank humiliations that Biden's have been. Even so, Clinton did manage to place second in New Hampshire, which, as we've mentioned in the past, has been an absolute prerequisite for capturing the nomination for over half a century. That in turn enabled Clinton to brand himself the comeback kid and build momentum heading into that Southern Super Tuesday primary day. Surely this is Biden's plan, to survive Nevada, scratch out a narrow victory in South Carolina, and cast himself the comeback grandpa. But it's far from clear that's plausible play for such a well-worn Washingtonian. After all, by the time the comeback kid was zigzagging around Jennifer Flowers and Larry King on his way to the White House, Biden was already a 4-term senator. The opportunities for rebranding at this point are few indeed. It's also worth noting that Bill Clinton was an undisputed freight train of campaign trail charisma, whereas Joe calls people at his own campaign events lying dog-faced pony soldiers. But the easiest way to confirm Biden's diagnosis of terminal zombification is to observe the hordes of humanity running away from it in horror. What should have been a layup of an endorsement from his former running mate is pretty clearly not in the offing. Nor did the influential Las Vegas Culinary Union throw in with Biden, despite their unconcealed loathing for Bernie Sanders and anyone else stumping for Medicare for all. Unimpressed by his terrible finishes in Iowa and New Hampshire, his donors have largely closed their wallets too. And nationally, his poll numbers are cratering. Increasingly, it seems, the pack is being repelled by the distinct scent of failure wafting from this campaign. If Biden's fatally flawed fundamentals didn't already doom him to failure, this much loser stink is just impossible to cover up. And why? Well, in our Bloomberg Whale episode, we discussed the concept of reflexivity, the positive feedback loop between fundamentals and perceptions, where a candidate's perceived strength yields better media coverage, financial backers, and endorsements, all of which contribute further to that candidate's actual strength. And of course, the same goes for a campaign in decline. Biden's fundamentals, his financial position, his polling, his establishment support were all much stronger 2 weeks ago, and he still managed to walk away from New Hampshire and Iowa with nothing more than participation trophies. And while he does do better with minority voting blocks, the demographic homogeneity of those first 2 states is not enough of a caveat to rescue Uncle Joe from his fate. He's about to be tested in Nevada, where a second-place finish is the bare minimum he needs to keep shambling on. And while Predicted does have him as a narrow favorite to place second, the polls in this difficult-to-poll state paint a rather worrisome picture. While that AARP did have him in second in a very divided field, the latest Nevada poll actually has him back in his comfort zone in 4th place, behind Sanders, Buttigieg, and Warren. And lest you forget, Biden's favorite thing to do, with the arguable exception of berating voters at his own events, is underperforming his polling. He fell shy of his New Hampshire average by 2.5 points and his Iowa average by 4.5 points, about the same amount by which Buttigieg exceeded his polling in those states. That's why our pick for number 2 in Nevada is Mayor Pete. We own this one ourselves, and while it's a somewhat speculative pick since we haven't yet seen how the mayor will do in a more diverse state, we find it very compelling at just 33 cents. Now, this is, of course, a caucus state, and with everyone but Bernie hanging out near that worrisome 15% viability threshold, there will be a lot of support shuffling after the first round. Warren, of course, is nobody's second choice, with the exception of some Sanders supporters who will mostly stay in their already viable initial groupings. And Biden actually managed to lose support between the first and final alignments in the Iowa caucuses, while Pete was way out in front in terms of adding support from non-viable candidates. Yes, the field has narrowed somewhat since Iowa, meaning those regrouping dynamics will be a little different in Nevada, but Pete still seems well positioned for yet another silver medal. And after Nevada, all Biden's got left is South Carolina. If he comes out of Nevada in 3rd or worse, the ink for any further comeback kid pieces will begin to run dry. South Carolina is one of those now rare states without any early voting, so the even more pungent aroma of defeat will be fully fermented by the time the first votes are cast. Now, I'd be tempted to say that even Biden himself will cry mercy at that point and suspend his campaign before Super Tuesday, but that's the thing about zombies. They're not great at recognizing that they've turned, or if they do, it doesn't seem to inspire them to go away gracefully. Now, of course, that means you need to keep your head on a swivel, so stay in the know as these primaries and debates slog on by connecting with us on Twitter at OldBullTV, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel before you go. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you next time.